Imagine a battlefield where death came from absolute silence. A soldier raises his head for 1 second and drops dead with a bullet through the skull. This was daily reality for Ottoman soldiers at Gallipoli. While European powers used obsolete tactics, on a remote Turkish peninsula, a new kind of warfare was born. Its protagonists were men who didn't wear brilliant uniforms, but the rough skin of the Australian outback. They weren't just soldiers, they were hunters. This is why Australian snipers were the most feared marksmen of the Great War. To understand the terror these men inflicted, you must understand the harsh land that forged them. These young men weren't in factories. They were in the Australian outback, a region that forgives no mistakes. Under a scorching sun, they worked as drovers and hunters. The landscape was a brutal training ground that taught lessons no military manual could offer. While British recruits learned to shoot at static targets, Australians learned to read the bush and move like ghosts. This was a survival instinct honed by generations. The skills they developed were perfectly adapted for human hunting. Stalking kangaroos wasn't a sport, it was a way of life. To approach a kangaroo, a man needed superhuman patience, using every bush as cover. They learned to track by what they felt: distant dust, the silence of birds. This ability to read the landscape would transform the barren hills of Gallipoli into their private hunting ground. They weren't entering a war, they were entering their natural habitat. There was also the crackshot culture. In rural Australia, rifle proficiency was a necessity. Shooting clubs were common in small towns, sponsored by the government. A young man like Billy Singh wasn't just a soldier, he was a prize-winning competitor who spent his life perfecting his craft. While European armies taught soldiers to shoot, Australians arrived as master marksmen. They only needed to apply that precision to a new kind of hunt. This superiority became evident in the Boer War. Boer commandos humiliated British forces. England called for reinforcements from the colonies, specifically men with bushcraft skills. These Australians proved the only ones capable of fighting the Boers on their own terms. One Boer commander admitted they were the first to use their own tactics against them. The reputation of Australian snipers preceded them. The stage for this legend was the bloody chaos of Gallipoli. On April 25, 1915, Australians landed at Anzac Cove, confronting steep cliffs and an enemy watching from the heights. Standard warfare was impossible. There were no clear front lines, only a labyrinth of ravines. The greatest threat came from an invisible place, the shot of an Ottoman sniper that could come from any direction. In this rugged terrain, Australians found their advantage. The landscape that terrified ordinary soldiers was the perfect hunting ground for bushmen. They adopted outback hunting tactics, using the terrain for camouflage, creating a 24-hour psychological death trap. A Turkish soldier could never feel safe. Australians infiltrated impossible positions, turning every movement into a death risk. The pressure of knowing an invisible eye was always aiming at you was more powerful than the bullet. The secret was the spotter and shooter team dynamic. While one man focused a telescope on the enemy, the other concentrated on the shot. The spotter was the shooter's eyes, scanning for hours, identifying targets, calculating wind and distance. This partnership required absolute trust, turning two men into a killing machine. While the spotter watched, the shooter waited for the precise moment to pull the trigger. These teams dominated Ottoman trenches through relentless attrition. They mapped every mortar and observation post. An officer inspecting his troops, a soldier leaning out, all were targets. Australians didn't just kill, they terrorized. They created death zones where Ottoman activity ceased, paralyzed by fear of an enemy they never saw but felt every second. The ability to disappear into rocks, perfected hunting kangaroos, made them invisible. At the center emerged a figure who embodied the fear of the Australian sniper. While infantry huddled in trenches, a man of Chinese and English descent prepared his rifle at Chatham's Post. His name was Trooper William Edward Billy Singh, the assassin of Gallipoli. His story is how a Queensland kangaroo hunter became the most feared weapon of the entire campaign. Billy Singh was not a traditional soldier. At just 5 feet 5 inches, he looked like an ordinary countryman. But beneath this modest appearance hid unwavering determination. Before the war, he was a local legend as a kangaroo shooter. At Gallipoli, this experience blossomed terrifyingly. His ability to remain motionless for hours, merging with rocks, was supernatural. He didn't just shoot, he hunted. He studied enemy patterns and waited for the perfect moment. Singh's post became the epicenter of death. From there, he had a privileged view of enemy lines at distances from 350 to over 1,000 yards. His preferred targets were officers. He didn't shoot for sport, but with brutal logic. It said he avoided shooting stretcher-bearers. But upon seeing a wounded enemy, he once commented, "I'll put that poor beggar out of his misery," and fired. This duality made him frightening. But the assassin didn't work alone. His deadly effectiveness depended on spotters like Ion Idrius. While Singh kept his eyes on the scope, Idrius scanned the horizon, identifying movement an untrained eye would never see. The spotter calculated distances and detected enemy positions. If the first shot missed, they had to move quickly. It was a deadly dance of patience and mutual trust. Singh's impact was so devastating that the Ottomans sent their own elite marksman, Abdul the Terrible. Abdul was a veteran who had killed Russians, Greeks, and Bulgarians. His mission: eliminate the Australian assassin. What followed was a duel of giants lasting days. Abdul studied firing angles, analyzing bullet trajectories to find Singh's location. Both knew they were facing their equal. One morning, Singh's spotter detected an almost imperceptible movement, a mud-painted face, fixed eyes, a camouflaged rifle. It was Abdul, aiming directly at them. For a moment, the two sniper teams stared through their scopes. Singh, with superhuman calm, slowly moved his rifle. As Abdul prepared his shot, Singh was faster. A single shot echoed, and the legendary Ottoman sniper fell with a bullet between the eyes. The assassin had won. The threat wasn't one-sided. Early in the campaign, Australians suffered at Turkish hands. High-ranking officers were picked off. This vulnerability forced Australians to innovate with the periscope rifle, a simple but revolutionary device. A rifle was mounted on a wooden frame with a periscope aligned to the sights, allowing soldiers to fire from within the trench without exposing their heads. This embodied the Anzac spirit of improvisation. The Ottomans were not passive. Many were experienced hunters from rural Anatolia who knew the terrain. The sniper war became a two-way street, a constant exchange where advantage shifted. Ottomans dug ingenious firing positions with steel plates and used dummy heads to draw fire. It was a war within the war. If the physical impact was devastating, the psychological impact was paralyzing. Knowing officers were picked off with surgical precision created a leadership vacuum. No one wanted to assume command and become the primary target. The chain of command was constantly decapitated. An army that fears for its leaders is an army fighting with one hand tied. This atmosphere gave rise to mythology. Australian snipers became the white ghosts, supernatural figures who emerged from nowhere, killed, and vanished. Ottoman soldiers whispered about invisible demons who could kill from a kilometer away. The sniper wasn't seen as a soldier, but as a vengeful spirit turning daylight into a death sentence. Behind this legend was superhuman discipline. Snipers spent days motionless, enduring heat, cold, hunger, and boredom. They couldn't sleep, couldn't move to scratch an itch. Every bodily function was a risk. They watched the enemy living their lives, waiting for the exact moment when a lapse offered the perfect opportunity. This ability to endure the unendurable separated legends from mere soldiers. By September 1915, Singh had 119 confirmed kills. General Birdwood congratulated him on over 200 unconfirmed. Some historians estimate his total approaches 300. But for Singh, these numbers weren't pride but cold accounting. Each confirmed kill was a day of patience rewarded, one less enemy aiming at Australian lines. In 1916, Billy Singh was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal for remarkable courage and skill at Anzac. The citation highlighted that no risk was too great for him. He was mentioned in dispatches by General Sir Ian Hamilton. The boy from Claremont, who faced racial prejudice, was now celebrated as the greatest marksman of the empire. But the war was far from over. After Gallipoli, survivors were sent to the Western Front in France and Belgium. Instead of arid hills, they found an inferno of mud and industrial artillery. Opportunities for sniping diminished, but Singh continued using his gifts on patrols. His keen vision was invaluable. At the Battle of Polygon Wood in 1917, Singh proved his legend wasn't limited to Gallipoli. Leading a patrol under bombardment, he eliminated German snipers wreaking havoc. His performance was so impressive, he was recommended for the military medal, with a citation describing his skill as supernatural. He was later awarded the Belgian Croix de Guerre. The war exacted a heavy toll. Singh was wounded multiple times, a shot in the shoulder, wounds to his leg, and effects of mustard gas. He contracted influenza and spent long periods in hospitals. In 1918, he was deemed unfit and returned to Australia. The war had shaped him, consumed him, and finally discarded him. His return wasn't that of an acclaimed hero, but of a broken man. He received land through the soldier settlement scheme, but farming brought neither peace nor prosperity. He tried gold mining and failed. His marriage didn't last. The skill that made him a killing machine was useless in peaceful life. His final years were marked by poverty. In 1942, ill and penniless, Singh moved to Brisbane to be near his sister. He lived in a modest boarding house. On May 19, 1943, at age 57, William Edward Singh died of heart failure. He was buried in a modest grave at Lutwyche Cemetery. For decades, his tomb remained without a proper headstone. Only in the late 20th century was Billy Singh's memory rescued. Historians brought stories of bravery to light. In the 1980s, his great-nephew and others pooled money to place a dignified headstone. Today, the Australian War Memorial celebrates his story. Billy Singh is the ultimate symbol of the Australian soldier. The lineage of World War I Bushmen runs in modern Australian Special Forces. The same hunting instinct and patience that made Billy Singh a legend are pillars of today's elite training. The SAS trains in the same deserts as their ancestors, learning to disappear into the landscape. The spirit remains the same. The tactics of 1915, spotter-shooter teams and extreme camouflage, are today the foundation of sniper training worldwide. What Australians did at Gallipoli was write the modern manual of precision warfare. This philosophy is applied today in global hotspots, where Australian marksmen are ranked among the world's best. What makes this heritage enduring is the combination of rural upbringing and lethal discipline Australia naturally produces. It's the culture of the man who learned to find water in the desert. When such a man picks up a rifle, he sees an extension of his survival instinct. This makes the Australian sniper a gold standard feared worldwide. Looking at the silent hills of Gallipoli today, it's hard to imagine the hell that once existed. Wind blows through grass-covered trenches. But for those who know history, the white ghosts are still there, the living memory of men who mastered invisible warfare like no one before them. Billy Singh and his fellow bushmen proved the deadliest weapon isn't the biggest gun. It's the patient eye behind a scope, the steady hand of a man who learned to hunt in the harshest land on earth, and the iron will to wait days for a single, perfect shot. They turned marksmanship into an art. The legacy extends far beyond confirmed kills. When modern Australian snipers set world records, they stand on the shoulders of bushmen who, a century earlier, proved what men from the outback could do with a rifle. The technology has changed, but the fundamental qualities remain. What made Australian snipers the most feared wasn't just shooting ability. It was their complete self-sufficiency, their comfort in isolation, their ability to read the land. They didn't fight for glory, they fought the way they lived, quietly, efficiently, and with deadly purpose. The story of Billy Singh is about how environment shapes character. The Australian outback was a finishing school for warriors. It taught self-reliance and patience. When these men arrived at Gallipoli, they brought the outback with them, in their skills and their unshakable calm under fire. Today, visitors to Gallipoli walk among peaceful memorials. But if you listen carefully, some say you can still hear the echo of a single rifle shot. It might be the wind, or it might be the memory of the white ghosts. The bushman who proved the most fearsome weapon in war is the human spirit, forged in a harsh land and aimed with deadly precision at history's darkest hour. This is why Australian snipers were the most feared marksmen of the Great War.